Oh, I don't know what the hell happened there. I jumped one direction, suddenly I'm falling down. I don't know. Anyway, hi, how's it going? It's the next night. It's dark, it's spooky, and we've only got the flashlight coming out of the camera, so I have to look at the viewfinder because otherwise I'll go blind. Hi, Chucky. Wanna play? So, how many more films can we dissect? Where the fuck are... Oh my god. Okay, here we are. Bride of Chucky. Conveniently came out the year I was born, in 1998. I will be looking a lot at my phone now because that light went right into my eye and I cannot see. Oh, the things I do for these videos. Okay, so my quote, of course, Barbie, eat your heart out. Good line, I like it. Really sets the tone and the mood of what they're going for. My initial review was, it wears its inspiration on its sleeves, and oh boy does it have fun with it. This was directed by Ronnie Yu. You might know him. He did Freddy vs. Jason. That was his next film after this, I believe. I'm very sure it was. I don't know. It was one of the next films in his catalog of films. So, yeah, that's an interesting thing to note. So, my thoughts on the film. This is a fun horror slasher comedy road trip film, but with Chucky and his bride. The human Chucky, human Chucky, aka Charles's girlfriend. God, I really worded that wrong. So Chucky's girlfriend has finally found Chucky the doll amidst a slew of other slasher characters' belongings. You know, you got Michael Myers' mask, you got the chainsaw from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you've got... I don't think Freddy's glove was in there, but you had Jason's mask as well, so Michael Myers, Jason, all that. It's obviously referencing the history that's come before it. Nice. I'm sure a lot of people would have seen that open scene being like, holy shit, look, it's all those references. Horror aficionados especially would have loved it. She gets the doll in order to resurrect her dead love using the Voodoo for Dummies book. Hopefully I'll have a shot on screen. Really nice use of kind of how the tone of this film, how this franchise has divulged into ripping on itself, pretty much. It's tongue-in-cheek meta comedy. It's not as on the nose as it becomes in the next film, and it's not too stupid. It's fun. I like it. It's funny. It's good, I think. At least I think it's good. So that's obviously a nice touch. After Chucky reawakens and disses her, she locks him up, and of course he takes revenge by killing her, whilst she's watching Bride of Frankenstein, which of course again wears its, inspiration on its sleeves. So yes, as I said, it wears its inspiration on its sleeves, and I like that. It's very on the nose in that regard of like, oh, get it because it's Bride of Frankenstein, but like they use it quite fun how like so Tiffany is Chucky's ex-girlfriend, is in the bathtub and watching the film on a small, TV because it's the 90s, and he pushes it into the water and it electrocutes her to death, and like you've also got the broken screen like with the bride screaming. It works. It knows what it is. And it also foreshadows what's going to happen in the rest of the film, at least in terms of their characters. So then he, of course, uses voodoo to put her soul into the soul of the bride doll that she had bought for him. They then proceed to coax two young lovers who want to escape into driving them to New Jersey so Chucky can dig up his old body and find an amulet buried in it in order to turn him and his bride into humans. Hijinks and murder ensue, and it's quite a ride. That amulet thing is literally the worst goddamn red... It's kind of a red herring, but it's also like a retcon, because they're like, oh, look at this image from the first film that's like totally just a taken photo. That's what they kind of do when they are cheap on budget. they take an image from the previous film or from earlier in the film and utilize that as a prop later on. And I've actually seen it done in a film where they had an image that looked like, I'm thinking, like, that looks like a shot they're going to end up using it later in the film, and they use it later in the film as an actual moving shot. That's just really weird and lazy, I think. And so they have kind of photoshopped on this amulet onto Brad Dourif's dead body at the end, from the first film. So to say that, like, oh, he had this power from the amulet that gave him voodoo powers. So, but no, because that never happens in the first 3 films. It never happens again. My thoughts on Chucky. Chucky is ugly now that we have... Chucky is ugly now. Chucky is just ugly. And I think it suits him. He's all cut up with scars and stuff. It's really cool, because of course last time we saw him, he gets chopped up in a blade, and when Tiffany grabs him, he's like all this bundle of kind of flesh that she sews together. Very nicely done. So of course we've seen him get cut up and burnt to a crisp, but never stitched together this horrifically and for such a permanent time, because it goes throughout the whole runtime of the film and throughout the rest of the series. Tiffany is a more than welcome element. A sympathetic one too, which is very nicely juxtaposed with the footage from Bride of Frankenstein. Their chemistry also works quite well, which is, hilariously leads them to a sex scene throughout the film, so, 2 dummies fucking. It's quite funny. It's not too, it's not like Team America, but I think it's got enough nuance to itself rather than the Team America sex scene, and it's funny to watch, and of course that's kind of the point. They use a lot of shadows and stuff, like silhouettes and shit, especially to emphasize what's happening, but not show it wholeheartedly, which is really clever. So they really had a lot of fun making that scene. But overall, I think Tiffany is great. Her chemistry with Chucky is excellent. So I thought, again, welcome addition to the franchise. My problems. I had no real issue with this film outside of some convenience with the ending, mostly the cop showing up out of nowhere, but I guess, technically the radio broadcast you hear early in the film, oh, they're going to dig up the, Chucky's grave in this location here. It could have been a trap, maybe, or the sheriff or the detective heard it and was like, I'm going to go there, because that's probably where they'll go next. Also, the 2 human leads weren't too convincing as a couple or as characters. Not even their third tag-along was, but it's a 90s horror film. It kind of makes sense that they're not going to be very well-written and well-portrayed characters, so you kind of roll with it. And then, to be honest, you know that they might die off at some stage in the film because, of course, they're being pretty much screwed around with by Chucky and Chucky's bride, so it's kind of alright. Overall, Chucky is fun. Tiffany is fun. The slasher elements are very fun and have become more creative due to some CGI assistance, but I think it's effective where it counts, especially the mirror falling down. They don't overplay themselves, and they still use a good amount of practical stuff. Actually, a lot of practical effects. The humor worked too. The film has become self-aware, which I think was the right direction to blend the slasher horror, which is a pretty bland stick by this point in time, especially in the franchise, but also for current viewing habits when it comes to 1998 with slasher horror. Hence why Scream came out the year before it and kind of revitalized that element. They're like, hey, we can now play like the whole let's do the Scream thing. And I don't mind that they're kind of ripping off Scream, but they're not completely ripping off Scream. They're just making this horror comedy approach. Which, again, even Evil Dead 2 did, so, The comedy and dynamic between Chucky and Tiffany was a much-needed change that benefited the film a lot, not to mention that Rob Zombie did the opening song for the film. Yes, this is a very dated film. The blueness, to be honest, this is a very late 90s horror film. It's very obvious that it's very dated, but at the same time, it's so kind of fun to, like, watch that and see how kind of cheesy it is. And it adds to the campiness of the film. So, of course, it feels like a 1998 horror film. And it's kind of fun to note this film came out the year I was born. So, yeah, it's just fun. It's fun to note. I gave this film 4 out of 5 stars. I'm going to move positions now because this is hurting my eyes. This was fun. Let's... What? Oh, hi. Sorry. That was weird. This keeps happening. Okay, Seed of Chucky, the weird film. Um, 6 years later, Seed of Chucky comes out. Kind of weird timing. I have no idea why. I'm pretty sure someone could tell me why they happen. Did I mention that there's like no special features for any of these films except for in the first film on the 25th anniversary edition, not the actual box set version? And there's special features on Curse and Cult of Chucky. Cult of Chucky has actual stuff that's interesting. Curse is just deleted scenes and isn't interesting. So there's that, but of course they are direct-to-DVD stuff, so I'm not surprised. So yes, this was the last theatrical release in the current franchise, not including the reboot, of the Chucky films. And it's... I don't like it that much, to be honest. I mean, I know some people do like it, some people don't like it. It's very mixed. To be fair, a lot of these films are pretty mixed. Pretty much after the second one, I think they're pretty mixed. This film, I think, is pretty bad. It just doesn't flow with me. I just don't... It still strives for that horror comedy aspect, but goes more for comedy, and tries to be more of... I understand the themes of its domestic nature, which, you know, the husband and wife and kid stuff, which is interesting, but the whole execution of the rest of the film, I don't think works. So let's break into it. My quote, "I'm a real lady killer." Initial review, taking the meta approach to a whole new level. Of course, not in a great way, but you know. This was Don Mancini's, or Mancini, I'm going to say Mancini, or Mancini, it depends on how I pronounce it throughout the video. It was his first actual directorial debut, but, fun fact, he's written all of the films. He created the idea. Tom Holland and someone else rewrote the first film to add in the voodoo stuff and whatever, and Mancini had to roll with it for the rest of them. I think some of them he co-wrote with other people, but for the most part, this is the first one he's actually fully directed, and he's directed them ever since, except for, of course, the 2019 version. My thoughts on the film. So Chucky's son/daughter, Glenn/Glenda, finds their parents as props for a movie based on the supposed killing spree story. So, of course, the Chucky killing spree. Oh, I'm sorry, are you confused as to how they had a kid? You know that sex scene I mentioned? Well, at the very end of of Bride of Chucky, my least favorite part of the whole entire film, is when Tiffany, now deceased because she's been burnt to a crisp and now she's dead, as a doll, just the detective sees movement coming from her, and after poking her a few times, and out comes this weird baby doll thing with sharp teeth, and it goes to kill him, and that's the end. That's the last thing you see. So this is now the story of that. This film opens beautifully on a first-person perspective stuff of a Chucky doll killing people. It's a birthday gift that this rich white people family don't really like that much, and so it ends up getting a knife and killing them all in really creative ways. So that was quite fun. But then, of course, you know, he's in he actually wakes up. This is Glenn. He's in a traveling circus. He wants to know who his parents are. He has a Made in Japan thing on his wrist. That's kind of a retcon. I think it's also meant to be kind of a joke on how the American toys are mass-produced from other countries. I guess it's technically not a retcon, but it's like you never really saw that Made in Japan thing, and if the factories were actually there maybe it's the body parts that were made in Japan, they were shipped to America, when that in the factories they were put together. That kind of makes more sense. Okay, let's just go with it like that. So, you know, he sees the Hollywood behind-the-scenes thing to do with, you know, the Chucky film, because, of course, when we cut to the Chucky thing, it seems like it's a film, like, it seems like it's fake of a set, and then it turns out, yeah, it's actually a set, and they've actually got Chucky dolls and stuff on electronics walking around and whatever, and they keep screwing up with their lines and whatever. Anyway, so, of course, then, you know, Glenn moves to America, because he was in England somehow. The guy who in the traveling circus had found him in a graveyard and then brought him to England. Doesn't matter. So then the film takes the meta approach even further than the previous one by having the main character be Jennifer Tilly. Jennifer Tilly is the actress who played Tiffany in the previous film, the real-life actress who then dies in the film, of course, in Bride of Chucky, to become the doll, because she's Tiffany. And in this one, she is the actual actress of Jennifer Tilly, the one who was in Bound. Great film, by the way. I love that they reference that, even though they obviously just reference it for the lesbian aspects to it, which is kind of a discredit to the actual art that the film is. Anyway, so this is actually the real-life her. It's like, obviously this film was very inspired by Wes Craven's New Nightmare, with that whole bring it to real life, make it horror, but instead of that one actually making it a horror film, this one makes it into a meta-comedy. It doesn't really work. At least I don't think it does. So she's an actress and she wants to be more famous, and oh boy does this film really stretch that, the meta idea really far. So simply put, it's Tiffany and Chucky wanting to put their souls into Jennifer Tilly and Redman, who's I believe an actual director. It was meant to be Tarantino, but production issues and whatever halted the film, and then he ended up deciding not to do it because most theorized because they moved to like another country to film it, making it look like Hollywood, but it wasn't actually Hollywood. So yeah, that was disappointing because I'm certain that people would have loved it if Tarantino was actually in the role, because it was definitely written for him, to some degree. So while they want to put their souls into these two big new bodies, so again, the first time they really want to put their souls, actually the second time they want to put their souls into adults, but the previous time was in Bride of Chucky, but they don't really emphasize it too much that they really want to put their souls into it. Like, it's their aim, it's their arc. Let's put our souls into these two teenage lovers. But it's like, yeah, we don't really focusing on that. We're focusing on, these teenage lovers, murderers, but it's actually, of course, Chucky and that are killing people on the road. It's, I don't know. Again, it's a road trip movie. What do you expect? So they also want to teach their kid about how to kill. And, of course, it's not as fun as it sounds. The amount of explanations I have to provide for all this extra stuff. Again, this is why I don't detail the whole plot. I should, but I shouldn't at the same time. What are my thoughts on Chucky? So, Chucky and Tiffany adopt the parent dynamic well, and still have some resemblance of their former selves too. Their kid is okay. Ugly, yeah, duh. But not much of a frightfest. I mean, of course, I feel like if you saw that doll at a store, if you saw Glenn at a store, you'd be like, what the fuck is that, At least Chucky and Tiffany have a cuteness aspect to them. They have a creepiness, evilness aspect, but they don't have an ugliness, evilness, creepiness aspect. Except for current day Chucky now with all his scars, but I think that just makes him look cooler. The kid is kind of transgender, but not really. I detail it further on, so I'll get into that. I think it's... Oh, yeah, I get into it later. Okay. So let's just get into the problems with this film. We'll talk about the character of Glenn later. I have a lot of problems with this film. Yes, there is still some fun to be had, and it wasn't boring. Surprisingly, none of these films have been boring. Oh, okay. By this stage, none of these films, for me, have been boring. But the film just kind of becomes a strange abomination of itself. Like, I understand what it was going for, and I get it. I get it, but, like, it just doesn't work with me. I just don't care for it. So it's still, of course, in the realm of horror, and the realm of comedy, and the realm of this mixed dynamic, but it's kind of become a weird kind of sex comedy, but still black comedy. I don't know. It has John Waters in it, and the reviewer I mentioned earlier said how, like, once you see that John Waters is in it, you kind of get the idea of exactly what the film is trying to go for, which is fair enough. I'm not a big John Waters fan, but I've never seen any of his films, to be completely honest. So I can't disagree with what the guy was saying, but I get it. Like, I understand what the type of films that John Waters has made. Eventually I might watch them with, Divine and all those. I think Pink Flamingos is, like, his most famous film. But yeah, currently not in my bucket list. But yes, it's definitely trying to be Scream 3 mixed with, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, but I just don't think it works very well. Scream 3 has the whole Hollywood aspect of it all as well. It's not really as much of a comedy, but it's definitely still on the nose kind of meta, horror film, horror slasher. I like Scream 3 a lot, actually. I think it's my favorite of the Scream franchise. I guess it's, worth the watch, this film is, if you're a diehard Chucky fan. And of course, you can't really skim over it in terms of getting to the narrative of the next film. But at the same time, you kind of can, because they really don't actually reference anything from this film, except for the fact that they're... Oh, no, I guess because you got Jennifer Tilly. Okay. Outside of the fact that Jennifer Tilly comes back in her human form. So I guess you kind of have to watch this film. Yeah, it's alright. You might like it. You might not. If you don't, it's 90 minutes. That's the benefit of all these films. They're like 90 to 97 minutes long each. They're not that long. It's pretty... I watched 4 of these in a day. It was very easy. Overall, this is definitely my least favorite of the franchise. I wrote so far, and hopefully over the entirety, but I think it definitely still is my least of the franchise, just wholeheartedly. It again has new and interesting approaches, but the overly meta nature and the heavy leaning into the let's make them human via voodoo thing is still there, and it's like tiring as hell. I don't know why the hell they still do it. Like, come on, Dom Mancini, come up with something new. All this fucking voodoo crap. Like, at least do something interesting with the voodoo. I don't care for Chucky to be in a goddamn body of a goddamn human. I don't care. I don't think that's threatening, because then you can just kill him like a normal person anyway, like he died in the first film. Not very dramatic. There weren't even really enough kills to suffice my bloodlust in terms of watching that. I don't really watch slasher films with the bloodlust and stuff, but sometimes if it's like, that's kind of the fun of it, then I watch it because that's the fun of it. I watch the Friday the 13th franchise for the kills, because it's fun as hell. I watch Freddy and the Nightmare films because I love watching Freddy. I love the dream escapism stuff. I love that aspect to it. And Chucky, I like seeing Chucky kill people in stupid and barbaric ways because he's a fucking doll and he's killing people, and it's great. Yeah. Fun fact, this film was based on the Ed Wood film Glenn or Glenda, about a person suffering from gender dysphoria. Hence why Glenn doesn't know what gender he is. He thinks he's a he at the start of the film, which, to be fair, he pretty much still is a he, but then his parents want to decide for him and pull out his pants to realize he has no genitals, so they're like, he's a he, she's a she, he's a he, she's a she, and then he kind of goes crazy about it later and kind of dresses up like his mother and shit, and then realizes that that's kind of his crazy side. So I don't know if you could take offense to it. Maybe in modern standards, probably yes. But obviously, if you're going to take offense to that notion of this film, you're not watching this film for the right reasons, honestly, if you're going to get offended by any gender dysphoria stuff. So, yeah. I gave this film a whopping 2.5 stars out of 5. Yeah. Cool. Now let's get real and let's get modern. Curse of Chucky came out in 2014? Yeah, bloody hell. 10 years later. Because, of course, Seed of Chucky didn't do very well at the box office. So, 10 years later, they make a direct-to-DVD sequel. Kind of soft reboot, but more or less completely sequel. The quote, "Play with this." My initial review: on a dark and stormy night, Chucky killed people. The end. That's my plot synopsis as well, by the way. Director Don Mancini, again, of course. My thoughts on the film. Like I said, dark and stormy, and people die, and it takes forever for anything to happen, and I don't care for the characters or the kills. This franchise has lost its charm, and it seems pretty dead in the water. I know, a lot of people like Curse of Chucky. I'll get to it in a second, let me just... To be fair, I expected this one to be a good renewal film, as it's designed as a soft reboot, but more of a genre soft reboot over a narrative reboot, which is nice, of course, because it's going more for the horror over the comedy. Actually, it's fuck off comedy. We're going back to our horror roots. Nice, I like that. But the film felt kind of cheaply written and made, at least in terms of pacing. There are some clever ideas that they go for, and I like the characters paraplegic and stuff like that, and all the elevator. There's so much great stuff that they do, the isolation. There's a lot of great stuff that they do. but it's how they pull it off that just doesn't work, because I don't think the director is as good as he thinks he is, and that's the problem. The horror doesn't work, and the atmosphere is null and void. So let's get into characters. So my thoughts on Chucky. He's boring until he gets ugly, because he's a toy, and he's a toy, and he's a toy, and he's a toy. And then he starts killing people, and then one of the characters starts peeling off his face, and reveals, oh, this is still in the continuity of the rest of the films. And yay, finally, because I was so confused the whole time, and I didn't want to spoil myself by looking it up online, and that kind of ruined it for me, because I'm like thinking, wait, is this in the continuity or not? Come on, film, tell me. Why don't you just tell me? I don't know what I expected. Of course it was still going to be in the continuity, but that was also my confusion. Is it in the continuity? Is it not in the continuity? I don't know what's going on anymore, but they kind of reset the continuity at the same time because they do a thingy. Anyway. Wow, that's my whole thoughts on... so yeah, nothing new has happened to the character since he got married, and I honestly don't think that'll ever change. He dies, he gets ripped apart and destroyed at the end of the previous film. Yet he's back again. Oh my god, how? Who cares? It's a Chucky film. What would you expect? Problems. Lightning is not scary. I don't know why the hell half of this film is just lightning sound effects, and it annoys the crap out of me. Like, that's why I said a dark and stormy night people die, because it's taken pretty much over the course of one night, kind of. It's like 2 nights. But it's just the whole second day and night with where all the family's there. It's just ridiculous. Pretty much the whole idea plot-wise is that Fiona Dorff, yeah, who plays Nika, so she's the daughter, in real life, she's the daughter of Brad Dourif. She's a paraplegic, so she's disabled. I think that's the right words, paraplegic. Anyway, her mother is a bit cuckoo bananas, and they live in this old mansion together, kind of mansion. It's got 2 floors to it, big staircase and elevator because she's disabled. Nika, the daughter, is taking care of her mother, and then a package arrives. She flirts with the package delivery guy, and her mother tells the guy to go fuck himself, pretty much, because she's a controlling, obsessive freak. And they open up the package, and Chucky's in there. She has no idea why, so she throws Chucky out, and then the mother mysteriously dies overnight. Nika finds her the next morning, not the next morning, but during the middle of the night, she hears screaming, and then she finds the body dead, blood everywhere on the floor. Obviously Chucky killed her. Duh. So that's the first hint of, oh no, we're recapping we're pretty much doing the first film all over again kind of deal. Whereas, oh, was it Chucky who's now out of the bin and on a couch over there watching all of this? It's meant to be implied that, like, oh, she must have killed herself because she was just maybe that depressed or something. But, like, no, fucking Chucky did it, but of course they're not going to believe that. So that, of course, encourages her Nika's sister and husband and daughter and a priest and babysitter to come along to talk with her and make sure she's okay and whatever, because the daughter, the other daughter, the one that isn't Nika, wants the house to be sold so that she can take the money and run off with. One of the many twists, the babysitter, who you think that the husband has been having an affair with, but no, he just wants to fuck her, whereas the wife is actually fucking her. Whoa, what a twist. Someone studied Hitchcock. Then we get to the first kill, which is the priest. But it's so stupidly set up because, of course, Nika wants to give the niece Chucky, the Chucky doll, and Chucky's gone missing, and then the niece finds Chucky in the bathroom and is like, hey, look, I found him, and Nika's like, what? But he wasn't up there, but she's like, blows it off because she doesn't give a shit, because nobody gives a shit anymore. And they go and have a big dinner, which Nika and the niece prepare whilst Chucky is there. They go out for a few minutes once it's all been made, and Chucky puts rat poison in one of the dishes. Then, of course, you have this whole long, suspenseful scene. Who that's eating one of these many dishes is being poisoned, and you have one person start kind of coughing, being like, oh my god. It's actually really a good meal, thanks, Tails. It's genius, well done. and the daughter starts coughing, and well, the niece, and you're like, oh my god, is it her? And no, she's just put on. She thinks it's too much. It tastes weird, and it's got too much oregano or something. But then her mother says, "Shut up and eat it." Um, and then the priest starts sweating, but of course, me, the logical person thinking, was like, well, he recognized the Chucky doll, but didn't exactly know what it was from. And then obviously he probably realized, holy shit, that's the Chucky doll. I got to get the hell out of here. And then he dies in a car accident. So I think it poisoned him, but they don't really say. Like, he's had a car accident, and like his kind of roof of the glass is like shoved into him. And the like one of his cops who's like, oh, he wasn't drinking because he's the guy telling, he's my helper. I can't remember what they call it, the people who get rehab and whatever the fuck. I don't know what the hell they're called anymore. Pretty much the priest is his confidant, saying like, if you need help, if you think you're gonna go back to drinking, I'll be there to help you because I'm 30 years sober or whatever the fuck, 10 years sober or whatever. And so then the cop removes the thingy and his head falls off. And it's like, oh no, that's gruesome. Chucky must have done it. Maybe, but no, because Chucky never leaves the fucking household, so I guess maybe it was the poison got into his system, and instead of him throwing up and, dying from actual poison causes that are more evident, at least in film, that I would see, he just crashes his car into another one and gets his head chopped off. And it's just like, wow, cool. My main complaint is that the dinner scene goes on for far too long. I get it. It's meant to be Hitchcock inspired. Very, there's a bomb underneath the table, but the characters don't know it. When's it gonna go off? The Dom Mancini is not Hitchcock, so it doesn't work. And the scene goes on for long and longer and longer and way too long and just doesn't work. And it's really, like, they try with the editing for, like, they do all these close-up on people's mouths and really emphasize their eating and stuff, but it just doesn't work. It should have been quicker, it should have been tighter, it just doesn't work. It doesn't flow as well as they hoped it would have. I don't think it works anyway. No, that's over the way. So then, of course, later in the night, Chucky starts killing people. It's like, what the fuck, and who gives a fuck? It's a slasher film. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so of course it takes far too long for, again, anything to happen, and by the stage that anything does happen, it's like 45 minutes in before Chucky starts walking around and talking, which kind of sucks given that I've just been binging all these films, and it kind of just completely takes you out of the flow. Suddenly you just go like, oh, what the fuck? Suddenly we're back to an old-fashioned horror film, but like not as well made. Again, it has some nice ideas and stuff, and some nice executions, but overall, the whole thing just doesn't work. I guess if you're 10 years later, having not seen any of the Chucky films, or at least not seen a good, scary Chucky film, yeah, it probably does work a lot. And if you watch it by itself without the previous context of the rest of the films, yeah, it does work a lot. But it just doesn't if you binge it, which is my problem. Even though I actually watched it like the day after I'd watched 4 films in a row. So I'd watched 2, 3, 4, and 5 in a row, and then I watched Curse of Chucky the next night. It just didn't work for me. So yeah, I was actually pretty bored during the film, which sucks. Because, like, again, decently made film, but then the overabundance of lightning and stuff, and how long it takes for anything to happen, and then, look, plot twist, oh, it's actually a character who's screwing another character. Oh, look at this twist, something's happening over here, but I don't care, because the priest is dead. I don't know, it jumps over here, doesn't matter about it, we'll get to that at the end of the film. Who cares about that cop who's there for 5 minutes? Also, the characters aren't, really kind of realistic in how they react, which I know it's a horror film, but come on. It's more like a soap opera in this case. All the twists are predictable and boring, given I was just confused about the timeline for the whole entire film, so that's why I was kind of like out of it, far of it. I'm thinking, what's going on here? What the fuck is going on here? And then they introduced the timeline, and suddenly Brad Dourif's character, Chucky from the original, is back. He's alive on screen again, but it's set back in the 80s, and he's kidnapped their mother, the one who was the crooked, crazy one. She was painting flowers, and of course, that's shown because he bought all these flowers for her. That's a nice idea. Again, it's a nice incorporation. They don't do anything with it, but it's nice. It's there. It's fun. It's clever. at least good in terms of like production design and mise-en-scène. It's nicely written in terms of that aspect. So you got Brad Dourif layered in fucking makeup to make him look like he did 30 years ago. He does not look like he did 30 years ago. So they kind of re-established his backstory where he was kind of a creep, not just a strangler, but also he kidnapped this woman and killed her husband, and she's pregnant and with her second kid. And he's like, I want us to be a happy family, and he's the reason why Nika is disabled, because he like stabs her, stabs or shoots her, punches her. He does something while she's pregnant, and like it just disrupts the baby's spinal cord, so it's disabled from birth. And then, he gets out of the sewer when the cops come in, and he runs into the store, and oh look, the whole first film happens. So it's a retcon in, but at the same time it's like, yeah, but what about Tiffany? What happened there? Or Tiffany, what happened to her, It's just, it's Tiffany. It's Jennifer Tilly, but it's Tiffany. But still, and again, I'm also thinking, what happened to her? What happened to her kids? What happened to, because again, too much happens. Let's get this fucking through. Yeah, so this film kind of feels like a fan fiction, to kind of retcon some stuff, but also to continue the franchise. Also, the ending's predictable as hell, that Nika goes into an insane asylum. I guessed it like halfway throughout the film when her sister was like, I want to, take this place off your hands, you're not capable. I'm like, oh, they're all gonna die, and she's gonna get blamed because she's gonna have all the blood in her hands, but it was actually Chucky. No one's gonna believe it because it was Chucky. Oh no. And I guessed that halfway throughout the film, before Chucky was even killing people, I guessed what was going to happen at the end. So yes, it was a slow trudge to get to that ending. I don't mind that Chucky wasn't killed, but, in the ending of the film, he's not killed. But it wasn't so interesting or unique for the protagonist to go into a mental institute. That's obviously bait for the sequel, and then not just that, but like the grandma, who apparently exists now, another grandma, I get from the dad's side, I guess, takes care of the niece, and then Chucky gets mailed there. Again, who did it? It was fucking Jennifer Tilly. It was actually Jennifer Tilly. Again, gets stupid and kind of strange. So that's why you kind of have to watch Seed of Chucky. And then Chucky does the whole possession thing. Successfully, to some degree. Overall, I like that they went back to the straight horror roots, but it's not effective anymore, at least not for me. They use the same tactics as the previous films and most other slasher films, and it just wears thin. Also, narratively, nothing's really new. Kind of it is, because it's just more of a focus on adults again, in a more slasher-heavy environment, but just, too much soap opera crap. Lastly, they use two things that are ineffective and confusing. Firstly, the rat poison, which I've already mentioned, so I won't detail into it, because of course there's a whole homage stuff and whatever. Secondly, there's a nanny cam that the dad puts on like Chucky's shirt, I think. That's the way that they've edited it, at least, to make it look like he did that. And it films the whole entire film of Chucky going around killing people, yet they never utilize that footage in the court case, which maybe they could be like, well, it's because, as you can see here, if she's from this height, then obviously she must have killed them at this height. It's like, but how the fuck did she get up the stairs to stab her sister's eyeball out? None of it makes sense. They literally utilize a thing to be like, oh, we're using this nanny cam thing because the husband wants to be like, I want to get a divorce and get all your money. But of course, because he wants to blackmail his wife, and it just fails. Like, I get it's a character thing, but it doesn't work in terms of the whole narrative of the film, because it's like, I mean, come on, court case, and she knows. Literally, Nika watches him scrolling through the footage on his laptop, a laptop that never gets destroyed, and the police must have gone through the whole entire place and never looked that thing up and be like, hey, look, there was a live camera feed the whole entire time showing that it was actually the doll who killed them all. What? Who would have thought? 3 stars. I gave this film 3 stars. Bonus, and he comes back, and he's back in a post-credit scene that I mistakenly watched. Like, I was just left the film going while I was writing this, and then it just happened. I'm like, oh shit, okay. And he maybe kills Chucky. He kind of does, but like, he kills a version of Chucky. Yeah, there we go. It's a nice callback, but doesn't answer what kind of happened to anything in his actual life, outside of some vague production things. Oh, look, here's a picture of him and his mom, and then him and the girl from the second film, and then, the congratulations, you passed military school certificate. So I guess he went to jail, but then was arrested, but then was let back into military school. Sure. It doesn't really, he's on a phone call to his mum as well, so obviously she's gotten out of the mental institution. I think it implies that she's dating the cop from the first film, but it's like, that kind of seems weird because they had chemistry, yeah, but why would she date the guy who openly denied the fact and said that she was crazy? That doesn't work. So I guess that's closure, but it isn't. He comes back. And we'll talk about the next one next time on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Not me. Goodbye. That's what I am. I'm going to bed. Oh. So, lucky last of the present saga. Cult of Chucky. Because I've been filming these on multiple nights, today I actually went to work and was able to converse with my colleague Dave, who suggested me to watch the series. And it was kind of fun. It's nice to have people to talk to about movies that you've seen. I mean, I could talk to Lachlan about it too. He's watched them all. He has his opinions on them as well. So yeah, I don't know, it was nice. It's good to have a friend who's interested in horror films. Or a colleague who's interested in horror films. Alright, oh my god. Okay, there's a lot to talk about in this one, so I'm going to just try to read straight off the script because it's going to be fun on the bum in space. I mean, hell. So, Cult of Chucky from 2017, the second direct-to-DVD sequel. My quote, "Sometimes I scare myself." This is Chucky saying to himself about the kind of screwed up kills he's done. My initial review is Chucky, but more. Of course, this film is also directed by Don Mancini. Who cares a fuck? He directed a lot of them. Well, almost half of them. So, my thoughts on the film. So, Cult of Chucky immerses the audience by entailing every detail of the previous films in one final roundup. Asterisk there, because of course, it's technically not the final, but we haven't actually got the TV series. It's meant to be kind of a sequel. We'll get to that. It's decently performed, decently shot, and decently acted, with no real complaints in the production department, outside of, just some partial real-life details, like, they're all in a mental institution, but they're all wearing casual clothes, so it's like, is that kind of meant to be okay, or aren't they meant to be, like there's a part where Nick is wearing, a straitjacket, even though we never see her have it being put on, and we don't know why. So outside that kind of continuity error, they're wearing casual clothes. It's kind of like a kind of chill summer hangout, but it's winter. You can't go outside. The place looks like a nightmare from outside, but then on the inside it's all crystal clean and white. Obviously, this person hasn't. The production designer was like, okay, I've seen 12 Monkeys. I want to do the opposite. Flip it. The outside looks disgusting, but the inside looks amazing. Anyway, it could just be a budgetary thing, to be honest. Direct to DVD and whatever. The film, which is a direct sequel to its predecessor, combines the story of that with the narrative of all the previous films, and even brings back Annie, like the post-credits scene had, but of course, to a fuller extent. It's not bad. It definitely works more for the fans of the series. It also provides more and very interesting kills with a lot of blood and gore, some quite nice, and of course still some use of CGI, but I'd say enough use of practical effects. That head looked pretty real. And of course it brings more versions of Chucky to the table, whilst also answering all these lingering questions about the rest of the franchise, in terms of continuity. Also, it's set in a mental institution, which is pretty divided on the terms of, did Nika actually kill her family, and then, oh look, Chucky's back to do more damage. That's pretty much the whole half of the film. Nika, is she crazy? Is she killing people? Did she kill her family? Now is she killing the people and blaming it on Chucky? And then Chucky's actually back and killing people. but doing it more obviously outside of the like first kill, which was just a kind of, oh, Chucky did it. Anyway, so that's, I guess, detail of plot in a way. Yeah, so she's in a mental institution. They try to use the Chucky doll as a way to, like, perform, like, hey, this is how you treat trauma and shit and whatever, and how you come to the terms of the fact that, you killed your family and the Chucky is just a doll. And then more dolls keep showing up, and some patients start dying off. And then it turns out, yep, no, it's Chucky. He's back. I mean, the audience knows it, and of course they play it obviously because they're like, hey, we're going to make this obvious because obviously in the previous one we didn't, and this time we're like, yep, okay, this is for the fans. They've already seen all the films. They know Chucky. They know what to expect. And then suddenly there's multiple versions of Chucky, including Andy, who the post-credit scene that he used a shotgun to kill Chucky. That Chucky's still alive, and he's tied, like, he's cut off its head and nailed its head to a chalkboard, a wooden block, more or less, and he tortures it, and that's about it. Then he sees that something's going on at the institution, don't know how it's being reported, but he finds out, thanks to the internet. I guess because they officially say, like, oh, one of the patients has died there from a gruesome murder kind of thing. Well, not exactly a gruesome murder, but like a gruesome suicide. And, the victim says it was, written in blood says it was Chucky. And so he's like, I gotta get there to, save Nika, because he knows about Nika, because he tried to convince her doctor that Chucky is real, and he had the block version of Chucky in front of the dude, which made me think that maybe the psych dude, the psychiatrist who was treating Nika actually knew the whole time that Chucky was real, and he just was paralyzing her to molest her, which he still does, but it's never actually indicated that when he sees that Chucky's real and is moving and whatever, he's just in complete shock and he has no idea what's going on. So obviously, no, I was kind of wrong there. But I guess that's better, because why would Chucky work in a cahoots with such a perverted person? Murderers, yes, but perverts, no. Even Chucky has standards. So my thoughts on Chucky. Chucky is, of course, still the antagonist, well, duh, and seems to be more fun in this film, especially compared to the previous three, where he was either a more comedic villain, or he was just straight up trying to be what he was in the first film, which again, didn't work for me because, when you binge the whole franchise, Curse of Chucky for me doesn't work. But if you're going in terms of, oh, I want to watch a Chucky film, I'm going to watch Curse of Chucky by itself, haven't watched any Chucky films for a while, it kind of works. It works as a solo film in a way, and as a soft reboot, but for me it just doesn't work as a binge the whole franchise, because it just doesn't work. I'm sorry. Like, the pacing and everything, it just, like, it doesn't flow with the rest of the films I've just watched. So, yeah, Cult of Chucky does. Because Cult of Chucky is just like, no, we're scrapping all that stuff because we've just had that again. We don't need to repeat what we've just done for technically 4 films now. And we're just going to combine everything together. I don't really care much for the previous film, of course, in terms of how long it took for them to properly bring Chucky into it. I like the reveal of him with the plastic on his face and stuff. Don't know how it all works, but it makes sense. Overall, I kind of liked that they had multiple versions of Chucky in this film. The retconning of, oh, I found some voodoo stuff that allowed me to split my soul more, the I found it online detail that he says as a throwaway line, very cheap. Like, the voodoo for Jammies was a fun joke, but then this is just, oh, I found voodoo stuff online and it said I can split my souls. Someone watched Harry Potter. Yeah, and just, boy. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. At least the guy who I watched do his, like, series analysis said, like, before he mentioned talking about this film, he mentioned Chucky 3, where they are remaking Chucky from the end of the second film, and, like, they pick up his scruntled up corpse, and there's still blood dripping, and blood drips into the plastic, and of course that remakes the Chucky you see in that film, But you'd think that would be enough plastic to make a lot of Chuckies, and that would make sense as to, oh, there's multiple Chuckies because they've all come to kill Andy, or they've all teamed up together because they've all found each other and whatever. But no, it's just more voodoo, because I guess maybe Don Mancini forgot about the third film after he wrote it. Maybe, possibly. I mean, it has been 20 or 25 years, so it makes sense. So, yeah, it's an interesting idea to have multiple versions of Chucky, but I don't think it's well utilized. For example, so pretty much it's a simple deal of how they characteristically play them. One has one arm, one has messy hair, and one has a haircut, which they joke about because it's funny, I guess. And the one with the chopped off head from the previous film, you know, the one that's pretty much the main Chucky from. Pretty much the main Chucky, yeah, from the whole series. So that's your variety of Chuckies. 4 of them, and one's a head on a stump. And as it is, the one with the buzz cut, like the one with the haircut, Andy had, like, locked away, so he just sent it to the place. I don't even know why, because it screwed him over. I mean, it kind of screwed him over in the end, because he ends up killing that version of Chucky, but, like, he gets locked up in the ward anyway. We'll get to that. Yeah, so that's what happens at the end of the film, where they bring in multiple Chucky. So let's just get into that. So, my problems. Outside of the old Chucky wasn't a killer, or the doll wasn't the bad guy routine, which they've done so many fucking times it annoys me now, you know, where they pin it against the human protagonist and make the human protagonist seem crazy. It's not bad, but I don't care by this stage, you know, like, it's a very generic cliche, and especially in this franchise, they just keep doing it, and I don't care, because I'm like, oh, just get on with it. Like, by this stage, you're just here to see Chucky kill people. I don't give a fucking rat's ass about the humans. Like, once Andy left, I didn't think I was meant to care about the humans anymore. You know, Bride of Chucky had 2D characters. Seed of Chucky, I mean, I didn't care for the film as a whole, so that didn't really help. And Curse of Chucky had some interesting characters, but again, they were all soap opera versions of themselves. Nika I like. Nika's well acted, and I didn't mention that in my previous review for Curse of Chucky, but I do think that she's a good actress. I think she's a good actress, especially comparing that she plays a paraplegic, you know, disabled person, and then in a wheelchair, and then starts walking around. Again, we'll get to that. I'm going to spoil the fuck out of this film, I'm sorry. So yes, that whole idea of the human's crazy because they totally killed their family and stuff, tiresome. I have no real problem with Nika's storyline. Like, honestly, it's just the same old stuff that we've seen in previous films of Andy, but instead she's an adult. So instead of going to foster homes, she goes to a mental institution, which I think is a lousy idea. Mental institutions are stupid for horror films. Oh my god. You either have an insulted version of, like, anyone who's mentally incapacitated, or you just have dumb jump scares. And to be honest, it's one of the best and only good examples I've seen of mental, like, people who have mental problems aren't even people who are crazy. They're just old people with dementia and shit, and it's in The Exorcist 3, and it uses it so well, and I love it. And this film does not, because this film is like, oh, it's this guy has multiple personalities, but he's multiple personalities, which isn't even the thing anymore. It's like dissociative identity, but then that's not even correct to this character as it is. All of his identities are famous people. I think that's meant to be a joke, so that sucks. Then you've got the old woman who everyone thinks is crazy, but actually she's kind of not. She just thinks that she's delusional because everyone keeps telling her she is. So that also feels insulting, at least to the character. I mean, I understand the woman who killed her child and then, like, pushes out onto the Chucky doll to, you know, that makes sense. That's a thing. So, you know, I guess that's decently accurate. I don't know how accurately portrayed it is, but to some degree it's an accurate idea. And no one else is memorable, so who cares? So my main complaint of this franchise so far is repetition. It was interesting that Nika's character was willing to actually kill herself at the start of the film, and that was when Chucky was going to kill her, and then he sees that she's tried to kill herself, and he stitches her up and kills the crazy woman who he called earlier in the film. And I didn't really think of it at the time. I thought it was like, oh, Chucky wanted to make sure that he would kill her, which I think is what everyone got the impression of. At least that's what I got the impression of. But no, it was something else. So my real only problem outside of the repetition is the actual best new factor that they brought in, outside of, having multiple versions of Chucky, which I hope that I actually talk about. If not, I will make sure I do. Andy. Having Andy come back and hunt down Chucky could have been a great alternative for the film, but instead they, while Nika was maybe in the mental institution, they cut between, but better, because this one, he's just there, and he's useless. He's there, he sits on his laptop, and then he just fucks off. And then he comes back and he's like, oh, I'm at the mental institution now, I'm going to punch the security guard so I can get locked up. Because that's how that works. Because people don't just get arrested anymore. This film feels like it's from the 80s, but just isn't. So that's like his whole entire arc. He tortures Dole, and then he gets into mental institute by punching a guard in front of mental institute to save Nika. And he fails at saving Nika. He fails at saving anyone. He gets himself locked up. Good job, Andy. You're a waste in the film. Absolute waste. His character is basically an elongated reference and gets minor revenge on Chucky, but nothing substantial outside of torturing a doll and killing the other doll, which he's done so many times before. I don't think that's really helping anyone. And he shows the main, he's the one that, again, he shows the main psychiatrist the doll version of Chucky that's actually real, and he thinks it's just a puppet. It's a cool animatronic he got there. Kind of a nice reference to the fact that Chucky himself is an animatronic, but at the same time doesn't really work. And he has no arc and is useless to the film. He could have been useful if he was instead hunting Chucky, but no. He doesn't get any interesting story. I don't know why he's in this film. So overall, Cult of Chucky introduces some nice ideas. Again, the previous films. Every film has had at least some decent ideas, which is good, but not great, because it doesn't always do well on those ideas. Like this film, with the multiple Chuckies, and Bring Back Andy. Two great ideas. Bring back Andy, and, have him hunt and maybe kill a version of Chucky, or multiple, and also having multiple versions of Chucky. Great idea. Poor execution. They bring it in the end of in the last, 20, 25 minutes of the film, and it just becomes a gag. You other Chucky can kill this person because you've got a bad hairdo. Ha ha, bad hairdo Chucky gets to kill other person. It's just... At least this film has good practical gore effects. That's one thing I can commend it for. But, come on. You finally bring in the idea of multiple Chuckies because there are dolls. And it just becomes a piece of crap. It's not even that entertaining. It's wow, multiple Chuckies. And they do nothing. They just kind of kill a few people, but of course they're oh, welcome to the cult, because it's setting up what is meant to be the Cult of Chucky, but instead it's not. I feel like this film should have been called Curse of Chucky. The film previously, I feel like should have been called something else, maybe... I don't want to say Chucky Returns or something like that, but something is something as cheesy as that, C2O, 20 years later, Chucky's back and ready to kill, I don't know. Honest to God. The next film should be called Cult of Chucky because it's all of the Chuckies. But that doesn't make any sense, because who's the fucking leader? They all are. So there's no leader, so then there's no cult. It's just an army of Chuckies. So it's not even a cult. They just think, we'll put cult and mental institution together, and that makes sense. Damn, I'm being way too critical. Fairly, to be honest. They try to have a whodunit multiple killer thing, doesn't work. And it's just repetition, and Andy's wasted, and 3 stars. I gave this film 3 stars. Because it's entertaining, but it's just not great in terms of new ideas. Which I know, it's weird, I'm watching sequels, I should be expecting the same thing over and over again. Oh, don't blame me for wanting to have something different in my goddamn cup of tea every day. Maybe I want sugar, maybe I want honey, maybe I want to drink fucking water. Jesus Christ. So, this is the major spoiler, I guess, for the franchise. Chucky successfully possessing Nika. So he goes to the lengths to... Because he mentions that he possessed her niece. And then he's like, oh, turns out children are, really, like, vulnerable because they can die easy because they're humans. So obviously she gets killed whilst possessed by one of the souls of Chucky, which makes a lot of sense. I'm surprised Chucky didn't think that was going to already happen. Oh, well, I really like killing people. I'm in the body of a doll and I keep coming back to life. If I put my soul into a human, I'm just going to die, even if I try to, like, yeah. So, surprised he didn't see the problem, the flaw in his plan. Yeah, so he instead decides, I'm going to possess Nika, because that was apparently his plan from the get-go. Get her into a mental institution. Well, the idea was to get her into a mental institution or get her arrested so he can possess the daughter, but then the niece, and then he realized, oh, niece can die easily. Let's go with the adult, so I'm going to go with the paraplegic. Great choice, Chucky. So, this means that because he possesses Nika, Nika can suddenly walk. She just gets up and walks away. It's like, why? What? How? What? She has been disabled from the spine down. I get it. Chucky's a puppet, and technically he shouldn't be able to control his own body as a puppet, but he's a puppet. People, he's not even a puppet. Shit, he's a bloody doll. He has no nervous system, so you kind of just expect. You just don't think about it because who cares? It's meant to be creepy and funny because it's a doll walking around, killing people. It's meant to be scary for that idea, not for the idea of, well, how the hell is he controlling it if the doll doesn't have any ligaments? So suddenly he's controlling a human body, and apparently her spine and nervous system just is maybe fixed. I don't know. I guess the idea that they were maybe hoping for was, well, I mean, if Chucky can possess a doll who has no nervous system or muscles and can use it to walk around, then why can't he do that to a disabled person? Because then you make the audience think about it and how dumb it is, and then you realize the whole fucking franchise is dumb as hell because how can a soul possess a fucking doll? It's a movie. That's what the movie logic was for Chucky as a doll, but not possessing a human, so it doesn't make any sense. It's very stupid. Also the fact that this is like Brad Dourif, like, he's the soul of his character possessing the body of the character played by his daughter, kind of creepy as well, because it's, his father and the daughter. I don't want to think about it, it's creepy. Yeah, so, yeah. Oh, and then, something I called, when Nika gets outside and meets Tilly/Tiffany at the car, the one thing I thought was like, I bet they're gonna make out, and then they make out. I get it because it's Chucky's in a human body, and this is like the kind of love of his life, not really, but kind of, but it feels more like, oh hey, look, Chucky fans, it's two chicks making out, yeah, because it's the 80s. Wait, it's not the 80s anymore? It's not even the 90s anymore, Jesus. Oh yeah, and so technically the Tilly doll is also alive, because, like, if she's alive in the human body and the doll's alive, then technically that would mean that she's also split her soul, which I guess is fine. They don't have to explain that, it's pretty obvious. But yeah, that's just a thing. So I don't really know if there's going to be a follow-up. They also have a post-credit scene where Christine Elise, I think it's Elise, who plays Kyle, from the second film, the foster home girl, she returns in the post-credit scene and is like, Andy said he might be in trouble, and that's like it. That's the whole teaser for the next film, but of course the next film is technically meant to be a miniseries. How is that heater on? So yeah, that kind of screws the pooch on that element. I don't want a sequel film. I've heard that they're doing a sequel TV series, and I'm happy with that. Do it. Chucky limited series, one series run, finish it, done. I'd be happy with that. I'm sure most of the fans would be happy with that. I'm assuming most of the fans would be happy with a multiple part series, but did you see Ash vs. Evil Dead? There's a reason that show didn't do well past its second season. It was okay but pretty terrible in its third season, and I have it and I've watched it all, and I love the Evil Dead franchise, but oh my god, Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 3 was terrible. Season 1 was great, Season 2 was just confusing, and Season 3 was bad, so not worth it to make a Chucky multiple part series, TV series. But last but not least, of course, we have to talk about Child's Play from 2019. My quote for this one is, "Let's open you up and see what's on the inside." My initial review, gotta be honest, I still prefer the voodoo on black magic, but sure, I guess coding is scary. Also, Discount Jack Black is creepy because why not? So, I haven't watched this film since it came out in theaters, so I don't really... I think the Jack Black dude is like the guy who, like the tenant, the landlord dude at who's like got webcams set up everywhere in the apartment building, pervs on Aubrey Plaza. Oh my god. This was directed by Lars Klevberg, who hasn't done much in terms of films. He's one of those guys who made a cool, creepy short film, which they then adapted into like a 90-minute long feature, which sucked, according to the reviews at least. And then they got him to do a big budget, or at least a bigger budget, like franchise film. And of course, they wanted to build up a new franchise called Child's Play. My thoughts on the film: I watched this when it came out in theaters, so I'm basing this kind of off memory. Premise is pretty much as the original Chucky film, except that they're buddy dolls instead of good guy dolls. And it's not a serial killer's soul. It's a guy who's like in the coding for manufacturing, gets fired, and so he makes a malicious code that gets put in one of the dolls, and then Andy ends up getting one of those dolls because, you know, the mum's not well in terms of money and shit like that. Mum's played by Aubrey Plaza. So it's exactly the same as the first film, except just that bit of a difference. And now there's more technology, so now you can use your iPhone and your iPad, and Chucky can possess drones and shit, and cars, and kill people using technology, because that's cool. Seeing a car flip over 10 times, and then Chucky walks up to it and laughs while the person bleeds to death. I miss when they used to just get Chucky with a doll and start Chucky with a knife and start stabbing people. That was fun. This is kind of mediocre. So of course they utilize the programming, the technology part of today's culture to emphasize the villainy, but overall it's not too compelling or scary or different of a film. They try to utilize jump scares, it doesn't work. There's one jump scare where Aubrey Plaza walks past the screen and plays a loud noise. That's a jump scare for some reason. But she is a plus that she's in it. I don't know why she's in it, but I guess it's a plus. She's not that great in it, because to be honest, it's not her kind of film. But she's fine, I guess. Thoughts on Chucky? Bride of St. Chucky. Like, I like Mark Hamill and all that, but he ain't no Brad Dourif. And let's not get started on that doll design. Noosery. Overall, it's an okay reboot for a modern age. If you like the franchise, then you'll probably like the film. It's not very scary, but these are all slasher films, and I don't find the slasher films that scary anyway, so, there's that. I gave it 3 stars. It's fine. It's no Child's Play, but it is still Child's Play. And now we get to my ranking. My top 8 of the Chucky franchise, including, of course, the reboot. What did I think? We'll start with number 8. Number 8, we had Seed of Chucky, which I gave 2.5 stars. Number 7, we have Curse of Chucky, which I gave 3 stars. Number 6, we have Child's Play 2019. Couldn't really decide on these next 3, to be honest. 6 through to 4, they're all pretty much equal parts in my mind, because they're all 3 stars. So Child's Play 19 is number 6. Child's Play 3 is number 5. Cult of Chucky was number 4, because at least it did something different, kind of. I know, I feel like Curse of Chucky should be more up on the hill, but just in terms of how I approached the film and how it worked for my viewing, just didn't work for me. But I can understand if you or other Chucky fans dislike that idea and think, no, it's actually a much better film than you're saying. I get it. I get your point of view. Like, My colleague says the same thing. He thinks it's a better film. It just didn't work for me. So it's just completely my subjective point of view for it. I mean, hell, this whole entire thing's subjective. So number 3, we have the original Child's Play from 1988. I gave it 3.5 stars. Followed by number 2, Bride of Chucky with 4 stars. I like how it's changed pace, a change of tone. It's good. I think it's fun. It's fun, dumb 90s schlock. And of course, number 1, I believe, the best Chucky film, the best Child's Play film is Child's Play 2 with 3.5 stars. And that's all I have to say on the series. I'm more than happy to rewatch them at some stage. Definitely 1 and 2. I think if I really wanted to, I'd definitely do probably 1 and 2 and maybe Bride of Chucky. Knowing what happens in number 3, I don't think I'll rewatch it for a while, but I think 1 and 2 are very rewatchable. Hell, I rewatched Child's Play number 1 and I still really liked it upon a second rewatch. I wasn't expecting to, but I'd kind of forgotten what was going to happen in the film, so I'm like, it was entertaining to see it after a year and have all this other knowledge of other films come in, plus the rest of the franchise, and it was nice. I still think Child's Play 2 is my favourite. It just has more fun with it, with the kills, with the characters, with all this kind of stuff. Bride of Chucky especially, a lot more fun. The rest of them are pretty much all equal in terms of my opinion of quality, except for pretty much Seed of Chucky. I think it's just a tad lower. But arguably Cult of Chucky and, arguably Curse of Chucky is probably better than Cult of Chucky or Child's Play 3 or Child's Play 2019. Maybe in quality of a film, yeah, probably, but just the way it was viewing it for me didn't work for it, especially because I'm watching this more as a franchise point of view rather than always being an individual film point of view, but I'm still dissecting them separately. I don't know. I don't have to excuse myself. Who cares? That's how it be. So yes, this has been a long one, but I don't know if anyone's even watched it, so that's how it goes. Outside of that, thanks for watching. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more. Check out my playlist for my Calm and Relax series, where I've talked about Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Fast and Furious, Terminator, Alien. I think that's it so far. Yeah. I don't know which series I'll do next. I'm thinking of doing Halloween. I've also got the House quadrilogy to do, so that'll be fun. I might do that one next, just because I can watch them and make a video out of it, and there's only 4 of them. Halloween's going to be a hell of a show, so that might be a 2-parter. I don't know about that yet. I've got to borrow most of them from my colleague. So, yeah. Adios.